Park.
All right. Well, I think we will go ahead for time's sake, get started here. Maggie, please remind me to check the lobby and make sure we had met
I'll
everybody.
keep an eye on it, so don't you worry.
All right. Well,
And
welcome.
another one just showed up.
I know, right? That's why. So, well, welcome everybody to our new coaches meeting for the spring 2024 season. My name is Ryan Casey. I'm the director of esports for the Michigan High School Esports League. With me is my partner in crime, Maggie Helmer, who's the assistant director. So anytime you reach out to MHSEL specifically, you're either going to get Maggie or myself. We also have on here our college intern, Caleb, who's helping us out this season. Caleb's our third or fourth intern that we've had now. So we appreciate him hopping on. So you might get Caleb every once in a while too. But the real star who you're going to be here to listen to today is our super coach, Eric Hines from Divine Child High School. They have just an absolutely amazing esports program there. Eric's been doing this for a few years now, and he's been leading the charge of our new coaches meetings and webinars, as well as he sits on our advisory board. So we really appreciate all that Eric does for not just Michigan High School Esports League, but the esports environment in our state. And so all our contact info is on the screen. We will share you this slide deck, just so you know, as well as this recording, because I know some couldn't make it here today. If you haven't already, we just like to know where everyone is from in the chat. If you can just drop in your name and what school you're going to be helping coach this spring. I think we are already into right around 120 school mark, which is a record for us. I think we have 25 new schools this spring, which is really cool to see. So yeah, if you haven't yet, go ahead and hop on the chat and do that. We'll keep moving along here. Really, the point of this new coaches meeting is to just make sure you have a firm grasp as to how the league is going to operate. What is it going to take to be able to compete and be successful? And by successful, I don't necessarily mean wins and losses. Obviously, we want everybody to win their matches, but to really just have a great experience for not just yourself, but your kids, right? And so we're going to be talking strategies, skills, traits of a quality esports coach, things you can do to be able to support your kids. Learn about the format of the league, other things that we have planned throughout the season going into next year, and then give you a chance to ask any burning questions you might have about whether it's practices or games or matches or equipment, all that good stuff. And so, yeah, and anytime we'll be watching the Q&A, we'll be watching the chat. This is a meeting, so you guys will be able to unmute and ask a question. So feel free. We have a ton of resources at the end with a bunch of links, so you'll be able to find anything you need afterwards. And of course, you'll be able to reach out to us. And I will send a follow-up email with the slide deck and recording, as I mentioned. And we usually either start with this or end a lot of our meetings with kind of this quote, which is, no matter the results, when students compete, school culture wins. And I'm guessing some of you might be avid gamers and you are pumped about doing this. Some of you might not know anything about the games or are a little reluctant, but somebody gave you puppy dog eyes after school and asked if you would be their coach maybe. And you did it for that reason, or maybe you were voluntold to do this by your principal, somewhere in between. But I do think you'll find this is a great experience for kids, especially a group of kids who typically have not felt connected or engaged with their school community before. And I think you'll see that at various points throughout the season. So some real quick basics, and then I'm going to shut up and let Eric take it over. This is our 4th year of running this high school league. We are entering in our 8th season now. So you are catching us on the spring season. We also run this in the fall. They are not dependent on one another. We have a lot of schools that only compete in the fall or only in the spring, or they do both. It kind of depends on what the availability is of the coach and what the availability is of the student athletes, right? We just added a 10th game, and we're going to talk about games in a little bit this spring. So we have the most games available for any of the leagues in our state, which we're really pumped about. And we just started this year. It operates a little differently than our program here with Play Versus, a middle school version. So as you start hearing from your peers and colleagues about this, or maybe you work at a middle school and you're coaching the high school team, we do have some options in the works for middle school students, and that's with our colleague Nina at MASSP. The mission and vision of the league, and this is something like Eric sitting on our advisory board helped us develop. But basically, we want to provide a safe, competitive, and curricular environment that allows our student athletes the opportunity to grow their critical skill sets, find out about career and college connections, and then be able to actually contribute to their school culture within varsity esports. We are hoping that you are going to hold these kids to the same level you would hold your traditional athletes. We want them to be in school. We want them to be passing all of their classes. We want them to be having appropriate behavior, not being sent to the principal's office, right? Hold them to this standard, just like we hold others, because I think you'll see that they will absolutely meet those standards and that they will thrive. And so, our vision is to be Michigan's elite high school esports league, that, every school eventually down the road will have an esports program and they will participate. I mentioned the fall and spring season. So spring's here. You can see all the schools that kind of participated from last fall. It's going to follow kind of a similar sports model in terms of preseason starts this week. We're going to have 2 weeks. That is a great, great, great opportunity to kind of see how your teams function, right, with the various roles on the different games, to work through any technical issues you might have, whether it's with the internet filters or the actual machine or console itself. We will go into about an 8-week regular season, which does give you a bye week you can use. And then it typically doesn't last quite 4 weeks, anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks of a postseason or playoff. So roughly the threshold is about 50% of the teams within the league will make the postseason, the playoffs. And here are the games in the schedule for this spring. So you can see we have 3 games on Tuesday: League of Legends, Splatoon, Valorant. Valorant is the new one, by the way. We've been having kids reach out to me weekly for the last about 2 years asking if we can do Valorant, and so we're doing it. On Wednesday is Smash, NBA 2K, and Overwatch. And then on Thursday, Rocket League, Mario Kart, Madden, and Hearthstone. Eric's going to break down the differences in all these games. Notice that all the games start at 4. Depending on when you registered and you signed up for a team, you might have seen there were some things called a state league or a regional league, and 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Some said 5 o'clock Central Time and whatnot. Just basically know that if we get enough Michigan participation on these game titles, they will become a state league, meaning you will only play other Michigan schools. Some of the games that are less popular, we don't have enough schools that participate. Let's say Hearthstone, for example. So that one typically ends up being what's called a regional league, meaning you play other schools still at 4 o'clock, but you might have Ohio, New York, whatever, others that are on an Eastern Standard time zone. So just know that. And then other than that, here are just some key dates, some timelines. I can tell you the in-person state championship date. That is actually going to be on April 27th, is a Saturday, should you make it, or you just want to come watch. But yeah, we have 2 weeks of preseason right now through next Friday, the 16th. The following Monday, February 19th, that'll kick off our week 1 regular season date, which will take us through April 12th. So basically all of the spring breaks, and you'll be able to use your bye week during your spring break. And then playoffs will start on the week of April 15th. And then it'll end with in-person state championships. We don't do every single game title in person. We just don't have capacity. We're working towards that. We will do our top 4 most popular games is the plan right now. So, and I'll know that info. I'll get that to you by week 1. I think that is for me. I've done enough talking. You really want to hear from Eric here. He is the expert. And so Maggie and I will kind of monitor the chat and the Q&A. We'll answer what we can. And then when we find appropriate, Eric, we'll kind of interrupt you based on what you're talking about, if that's cool.
That's absolutely perfect. You know me. I will talk until like 4:30, 5 o'clock. My goal My goal is 350. I made 355 last year, if I remember correctly. We're going to cut it down to 350, except I'm already yakking away. Just for confirmation, though, that is 4 titles for the playoffs this time, right? Awesome. Loving that big change. Loving that big change. Let's go ahead and get started. So as the slide switches over, I'm Eric Hines. I've been doing esports for, it seems, as long as I can remember anymore. I started playing originally under Halo 2. Then I started running an esports club over at Centerline with the old Call of Duties, Halos, and Smash Melee. And now here I am with MHSEL over the years and still running things, going strong, having a great time. But you don't really want to hear about me. We're here to talk about what MHSEL is going to be doing for us this spring. And as you can see, we have our lineup. We got a new addition this spring season, and that would be Valorant. We're getting the mouse over for you right there. I'm trying to do the mouse, but I have no control over any of this whatsoever. So Valorant is the new one. I've been waited and excited for this to join Playverse. It will be with Overwatch in the Youth League. The Youth League is a league slightly apart from our normal MHSEL competitions. I believe at this point in time, we won't be featuring youth leagues at the state playoff level. I'm eyeballing Ryan out of the corner.
Not necessarily. If we get enough popularity and popularity says, hey, this is a top title in our state, we will do what we have to make it happen.
Awesome. So look at that. Even more changes for the spring. We got Valorant, and now we might be seeing the youth titles come in. Functionally, on your day-to-day, when you're queuing up for matches, the difference between youth title and the standard MHSEL titles is absolutely nothing for you. You will not see any changes game to game for those. Other than that, we have our MOBA with League of Legends. We have Rocket League for our soccer mock-up. Super Smash Brothers is going to be our fighting style game. For those of you who remember Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat back in the day, this is our Nintendo family-friendly version. Splatoon 3 is a third-person inking control style game that is also featured on the Nintendo Switch. Mario Kart is coming in for you racing fans. If you have any players who are into the Magic the Gathering style card games, Blizzard released their own featured with Hearthstone. Valorant is going to be our more tactical person shooter. So if you have players that are coming from the Rainbow Six or your Call of Duty Halos, since we don't offer them, Valorant would be a good place to funnel those players into. On the opposite side of that, we have Overwatch, which is more of our team-based shooter. So we're seeing roles there in tank and DPS and support. So a lot of team functionality happening there. And then our two traditional sports titles we see with Madden and NBA 2K. And I think we're ready for the next one. I broke this next slide up looking at the game offerings and what tech you would need to play this. League of Legends, Rocket League, Hearthstone, Valorant, and Overwatch 2 are all primarily PC-based games. You'll see some console options for Overwatch 2 and some mobile options for Hearthstone. But in general, you'll see players using PC for these games. None of these games require a really high-end machine. Our players call it the placebo effect, where if I don't have my 360 hertz ungodly frames per second, then I'll never be able to perform. That's really like in the players' heads. Our Rocket Leagues, our Valorants, and our Overwatches really play very well on budget-style PCs if you're still in the market shopping for those or are worried whether your school equipment can run those. League of Legends, I like to joke, could be run from the iPad that you have plugged in on your fridges nowadays. It really doesn't have any overhead on that game. And then next up, we have our console-based games. Most of these feature the Nintendo Switch. And there it is. So your Super Smash Brothers, your Splatoon, and your Mario Kart All three of those titles can be run from the Switch. Super Smash Brothers, to me, has a big advantage in the sense that each one of your players can play from the same Nintendo Switch. So if you're looking at resources and how they'll be spread out across your building, all three of the players on one team can be using the same Switch. Practices, since they'll be cycling through, you'll still be able to do that. Splatoon and Mario Kart. Splatoon definitely needs one Switch per player. So a standard team of 4 in Splatoon would need 4 Nintendo Switches. Mario Kart, I believe you can run 2 players per Switch. Turning over to our Maddens and our NBA 2K, something I want to note here. Right now, we're still using the PS4 versions for both Madden and NBA 2K. I believe fall is the transition. Ryan's giving me a thumbs up. Fall, we will be transitioning to the PS5 versions. What that means for you is you need the PS4 version installed. So if you have or the player has a PS5, the school has a PS5, you can still use that PS5. You just need to have the PS4 game installed on the system. Last season, during the preseason, we had a lot of back and forth with individuals still on that PS5, and it's a long reinstall. So please make sure if you're doing Madden or NBA 2K, you have that PS4 version installed. Let's see. If you're, I can go on this slide. Either one works for me. If you're in the market for any of these systems, used PS4s right now are running you about $199, and used Switches are running about $260. A budget PC is in that higher $200, $250 price range, depending on what you're looking for and what you need in monitors. One thing I want you to be aware of while you're shopping for equipment, especially on the Nintendo end, there is a Nintendo Switch Lite out there, which looks really enticing because it's generally cheaper than your standard Nintendo Switch. It's undockable though, which is going to cause your players some problems with connectivity because we really want a wired connection. So I personally would avoid that Nintendo Switch Lite and stick with a Nintendo Switch standard OLED or the old standard. I got a finger up from Mr. Case.
Hey, it's kind of a first come, first serve, but if you are struggling and funds and resources are low, I didn't think they were going to still do this promotion when they turned this league into free, but they do still have some Nintendo Switch consoles left that they can give to new schools who sign up to play a Nintendo Switch game title. So if you are going to run either Mario Kart or Splatoon or Smash, it is possible they can get you 1 to 2 Switches depending on how many they have left. And so you will want to email, I'm going to put his name in the chat. You might have already talked to him before, but Eric Suter from Play Versus, he would be the one, if you haven't yet, it looks like somebody got one in, Darren, they got one in already. That's awesome. So if you haven't or it hasn't been discussed, you can say, hey, Ryan from MHSEL mentioned we might be able to get a free Switch or 2 if there's any left. Shoot them an email and they will try and hook you up.
I think they still have the Nintendo Online accounts as well. So
it comes with some codes to get the characters and get the games and that sort of thing. Yes, correct.
Reach out to them. They definitely have resources lying around. I don't know how many people are up on the latest and greatest news in the video game console world. I just checked in with Playverse today because there's rumors of the Switch 2 dropping in November or releasing. Talking to Playverse, they're looking at least a year from when a new console comes out. So if you're tentative about making those Nintendo Switch purchases now, know that that's going to at least last you 3 to 4 seasons before Playverse is even looking at switching over. So it's definitely worth to commit in if you were looking at that.
And
awesome.
I will say, and then I'll shut up so Eric can go. That is one of the reasons that we work with Playversus as our platform provider is, because they do have actual partnership agreements with all of these publishing companies, and that allows them to do some of those things and to get code, to be able to do free things or like get you league unlocked and get you all the extras and bonuses, is because they do have an actual agreement with these publishers, because sometimes it's not like copyright, but it's similar kind of vibe for people in the education world, we know, right? Like if you're running a league or a tournament and different things going on, the publishers want to either get their cut or get their recognition or whatever it might be. So anyways, I'll let you go, Eric, and then I'm going to check on some questions here.
I think Tim had a raised hand there. Tim?
Yeah, hi. So just wanted to hop in there. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of this. But for anyone who is picking up a Switch or Smash Brothers, unlocking all the characters is a real time investment. So make sure you do it, or you have your kids do it, or whatever you need to do. Because if you go in day one, like, oh, the codes will unlock them, it does not. So just reiterating.
Oh, do you know the speed secret, Tim?
I heard a lot of it got patched out. I'm trying to do it now.
Oh, so okay, I'll double check. But as soon as you unlock a fighter, power down the system, bring it back up, and you'll go again. And you should get a fighter within a fight or two.
I tried and it didn't work. Maybe I did it wrong. I'm hoping I did it wrong. I'm hoping I did it wrong.
You know what? I'll dig into that. I'll add that to my notes on what the new fastest way. I'm sure the kids all know the fastest one. Awesome. Let's hit the next one. All right. Your tech needs. This used to be a much longer section, but it's gotten significantly better and easier. Playverse has amazing resources, especially in the internet filtering and port forwarding. Tomorrow is definitely the time to go talk to your IT department and make sure all your port forwarding is done. I know Ryan is sharing out these slide decks with you, and that internet filtering is a hyperlink, takes you right to the current port forwarding document for Playverse. Print that off, walk your iPad, your laptop, whatever it is that you have, right down to your IT department. They also like coffee. It doesn't hurt to bring a coffee along with you and make friends with them, because that IT department is going to need to open up all of these ports in order for your game to run, whether it's PlayStation, whether it's PC. Even though you can log that PC into your internet at the school, that doesn't mean it'll link to the game. Definitely take this down there. Your IT department will be able to handle all of that for you. If they're slightly tentative, like I can't open this up for students, they're going to use a web browser version of Game Pass, which happened to my school here in September. The students figured out how to use a web browser to get to Game Pass and play. They were Fortniting it up for a good 2 to 3 days before we figured out what was going on and why the network was so laggy. They can set up timetables for these systems. So if there's a little apprehension on what gets opened up for the students to be able to use, one of the compromises you can bring up to them is, hey, can you set the rule to start at 3 p.m.? You could also set up virtual networks. Hey, these are my esports computers. They're only used in this room. Can we get a virtual network for these machines and these machines only? Bringing up those terminologies with IT will definitely indicate that you know what you're talking about. You've been digging in and researching this stuff, and we always appreciate that when we're talking to people who actually have done a little research on that. So take that information with you, virtual networks or timers, and you should be good to go there. That being said, you need to, or you probably should, update your devices and consoles weekly. All of the major competition titles tend to update on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. So I make it a habit for myself on Tuesdays at lunch. I wander down into my esports room and I start all of my machines up and check for those updates. Sometimes they're quick and fast. Rocket League will throw out a 5-minute download patch and you're good to go. Other times they'll launch a patch that'll take you an hour to 2 hours to download. So I would definitely check into those on Tuesdays, 9 a.m. Those patches drop. Valorant specifically patches every 2 weeks. I don't know where we are in the cycle off the top of my head right now, but they release that patch every 2 weeks at 9 a.m. and it tends to be a little bit of a slower download. So you're going to want to make sure you get in there, update those systems, and have them run over your lunchtime, lock the door, and step on out. You also definitely want to be on wired connections. PC, you can probably pull off some Wi-Fi. Rocket League tends to be a little bit more friendly to that. But in your Valorant and your Overwatches, being in that latency state could cause some issues for your players. And as much as I personally love Nintendo, their online leaves something very strongly to be desired if you're using it in Wi-Fi. So you definitely want to go out and make sure you have a hardwired connection. If you have the OLED version, you have an Ethernet port right in the back of your dock. If you have the old school docks or the standard Nintendo Switch dock, you unfortunately do not have a Ethernet adapter in there. You'll need to purchase yourself a USB to Ethernet adapter. There is a Nintendo Switch branded one that you'll pay about twice as much money for. There is a Amazon Basics one that works absolutely fantastic at about half the cost of the Nintendo Switch one. So I did not think of it prior to this moment, but I will get a Amazon link over to Ryan and he can definitely get that put out to you all. They're sitting right there. I really should grab one, but I'm going to resist the urge to go all squirrel and get off of topic. Other things that you should consider in the future is getting yourself some streaming devices. From the PC, it's really easy to stream with OBS. So your Rocket Leagues, your Valorant, your Overwatch, you can pick your shot caller in Valorant and Overwatch or your lead player in Rocket League, and you can stream it directly from their PC through OBS. It will always give you the viewpoint of that lead player. As you breach into streaming, and I'll talk about picking something to be good at later in the slideshow, but if streaming is something that you pick to be good at, you really should consider additional capture cards so you can route those PC footage to another computer and you can set up your stream cast from there. If you're going with Nintendo Switch, you will need a separate streaming device, either an Elgato, and that's the HD60S, a AverMedia, or once again, Amazon coming, are there bulk deals on capture cards? Look at that, just in time. Amazon does now have cheaper options for the capture cards. They will now run 60 FPS, and I just lost my monitor behind me. In the past, the smaller, cheaper capture cards that you got from Amazon only ran at 30 FPS. They are now up to 60 FPS. I bought a test one last fall, and it works absolutely fantastically for Splatoon and Smash. So if that $100 price point for the Elgato and the AverMedia is not to your liking, the secondary market Amazon ones work perfectly fine. They come in a million different names and brandings. They're all the same device, just with a different ink stamp on them. So go ahead and buy those. They work excellently for the Nintendo Switches. When it comes to the PC style games, I probably would stick with the Elgatos and the AverMedias, as your FPSs are going to be higher there. I'll have Ryan remind me, or I'll ship it off to Ryan. I did a whole presentation at the last esports conference for all of those devices in streaming, and I can have Ryan push that out as well. Cool. All right, back to the meat and potatoes. 10 things I wish I knew before starting my life as an esports coach. Definitely have learned lots of valuable lessons over the years. I've stressed myself out. I've stressed my parents out. I would like to give these ideas to you before you start the season so that you don't have to go through this. So lesson number one, bigger is not always better. I treated esports like the buffet when I first got there and said, I'll take one of these, and one of these. The next thing I know, I had a plate stacked up this big of all the titles I wanted to run. And it really did stress me out. I lost all my hair that season. It's all gone. The rest of this went gray. Try not to do that to yourself. Take a survey. Oh, bye, Charles. Take a survey of what your students are interested in. Look at where the biggest title that you have equipment for is there for you. It's always better to start with 1 or 2 games with a small group of players just to get your feet wet, get yourself comfortable as a coach. And then as you progress through the years, you can look at adding a title or 2 on there. English. Try to resist the puppy dog eye urge that Ryan mentioned earlier. It's gotten me in all sorts of trouble over the years of people knocking at the door and like, Mr. Hines, I really want to play Splatoon. Okay, we'll run Splatoon. Mr. Hines, Mario Kart. Okay, we'll get Mario Kart. I think now I'm in almost every single title across the spectrum here at MHSEL, and I'll survive the year. We'll be all right. Number 2, what is popular now may not always be. I come in from a Halo background. I've always loved the first-person shooters and the Halos, and I was really disappointed it wasn't here. So then I got into Smash. At my school, Smash is starting to die off. I don't know if I'll have a team for Smash next year. League of Legends also died off for our school. That went away. But in its place is Splatoon, Valorant, Overwatch. Esports is a very dynamic place. The team you have this year and the title you have this year, you'll probably carry those students all the way through their senior year. When those students leave, you might have a new batch coming in that are interested in a different game. So be flexible with yourself and with your players. As esports evolves, things are going to come and go, and skills and interests are going to change over there. Be very, very flexible. Let's go to the next one. I really did cover this in number 1, but know your limits. There is a limit for how much you can offer your players and your own program. We would love to see our coaches come into MHSEL and do this over the long term and not burn themselves out in a year or 2. So it is okay to say no and do a push away from that buffet. Be aware of what you're promising your players, what you can do. Don't overexert yourself. You will definitely lose sleep. Core ideas. Esports is a growing program. As Ryan mentioned earlier, it's always nice to take the big wins, take those state titles, but that's not that one team a year gets to capture that state title. So what is your core idea? What is it that you're offering your players? Go back through and make your own mission statement to really guide you. That way, when you're looking at your own limitations, you're looking like, oh, I put all my heart and soul into Smash, and now all my kids want to play Splatoon. You can look back at your own core ideas and what you really want your program to be, and then you can take heart and, okay, yeah, Smash is starting to go away, but Splatoon's coming up, and I'm looking at the skill growth in Rocket League, and look at how excited these Overwatch and Mario Kart players are. If you ever want to see anything, watch the video from the Mario Kart State Championships. Holy cow. The parents and the players themselves were blowing the whole place up. That's what we want esports to be. So set those core ideals out for yourselves. DC here, we have a mission statement. The 2 things we are working on is dedication and growth. For a lot of our players, this is the full first school activity they fully committed to. They've done some art, they've done this club, they've done that club, they've played around with the environmental club. This is the first one where they're really dedicating themselves and picking up those teamwork skills, whereas educators, we really want these students to have. So that add that into your core ideals. If you lose a match, try to head off that tilt that I'll talk about later by talking about growth. What did you do well? Like, look, you guys planned on working on taking a corner or hitting a flip reset off the ceiling. You got 2 of them this match. Next time you'll get 3 and you'll get that win. If that's in those core ideals, you can always bring that up to your players when you're in practice and keep that mental high. Documentation and systems. This one I had to learn the hard lesson. I'm going to use an extreme example. DC was blessed enough that we got to go to Texas for a national championship competition, and there was money on the line for our players. We didn't have a system written out for our players and how DC would handle that. And suddenly there was a massive discussion of, do players who were on the bench get the same amount as players who were starting lineup? Like, it felt like I was trying to make contracts for the NFL anymore. That's an extreme example, but you're going to run into other things that you're going to want a system in place. So when students ask you about them, or what about this piece here, you have something to fall back on. Start with something just as easy as a calendar. Like, all right, here's our practice days that we're committing to. Here is our playoff schedule. Get that written down and then start building from there. What does it mean to be a varsity player for your school? How many years in? Is it going to be a year? If they commit 2 years, do they get a varsity letter? Do they have to make it so far in a playoffs? Write those things down. That'll help your program grow. And you can even, for yourself, look at what you've accomplished over the year and go, oh, wow, I handled that varsity letter question. I handled what tryouts look like. And next year I can add more and more and more. Set a do good for yourself. If I look at myself over the year, the very first year I was in MHSEL, I wanted to learn what Smash and Rocket League was. I promised I would coach these games, and I knew about zero about either one. Like I said, came from Halo 2. So that first year, my good goal was, how do I coach Smash? How do I coach Rocket League? Year 2, I learned that the games are going to change so fast, and the kids know so much more than me, that there was something more important I could do as a coach, and that was to help them with their mental. So my year 2 good goal was figure out what tilt was and what player mental was and what those strategies are. So I really focused my efforts there. Year 3, I decided I wanted to do streaming well and tore into that. So every year, pick one thing that you want to do well and grow that out for you. It's that 10% rule I learned a long, long time ago when NGSS first came out. You can only change 10% of your systems at a time in order to do it well and keep your own sanity. So pick that one do good a year. Next. Looking at my time, I'm not doing too bad. 7, participation expectations. Going back to, this is the first year, or this is the first club or organization that these players are committing to. They might not know what these expectations are, honestly. They may never have played soccer. They may have never played volleyball. They don't know that their team is relying on them being there every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. So set those expectations out for your players. You will be at practice at this time. I need 24 hours notice if you're going to miss a practice. We're going to follow the school's athletic grade point average requirements. We're going to follow the school athletic attendance requirements. Set those expectations out for them. Set healthy habit expectations out for them. Esports, unlike regular sports where, like football, if you're tired, you can dig a little deeper for that last burst of energy. Esports, it's all a mental game. So now we have to eat healthy. Talk to them about what good cardio looks like to keep their mental game up, what good eating habits looks like to keep those good performances up. You set that expectations, and the sooner you do that for the players, the faster they're going to come online for you. Next, importance of mental and mechanical. Your players are going to stress mechanical all day long. I'm going to use Rocket League for the example here. Mr. Hines, I can't do a flip reset off the ceiling. I'll never be able to compete with this other team. And because I'm in the moment, I forgot the pro player I wanted to mention. But there is a pro player in Rocket League who can't do flip resets off the ceiling. What this player is known for is having the best mental in the game, and he's a pro player. So let your players know that mental aspect is more important than that mechanical aspect. If they play a smart game and they play the basics, they're going to do well. Additionally, as the coach, start looking for your players to start withdrawing mentally from the game. There's a concept called player tilt, in which the players get so upset that they can't actually compete in the game in a really good fashion anymore. So if they start slumping back in their chair, if they stop communicating with their other players, if they start barking or blaming things on other players, you have yourself in a tilt situation. Learn the breathing techniques yourself. It will definitely help you when you're in matchups and stressed. If you're anything like me, pacing back and forth, I have to use the same breathing exercises that I tell my players to use just to keep myself calm. Talk through that, like doing the big 10 deep breaths, trying to get their focus back. Now we can move on. 9, empower your team and do so early. Esports is so new and so young. This is still a grand opportunity for our players to take control of a thing that you don't normally see in traditional athletics. If I go to the football game and I look up at the announcing stands, that is all parents. That is all individuals who have been doing the announcing for football here at DC forever. Esports doesn't have those traditions in place. This is a great opportunity for our students as well as our players to come in and show ownership. For Splatoon and Mario Kart and Rocket League 2 years ago, those were all student started and coached titles. Hey, I got a team that wants to do that. If you haven't hit your limit, let those students coach that team. It looks great on their applications to colleges. It's great for their own mental, for their own pride. If we're not talking stick pilots, as in the individuals currently playing the game, there's tons of space in esports for your other students to grow. I now have a lead programmer here at DC. I have a student who wrote a program from scratch that allows me to update my stream overlay for scores, for other school colors. He wrote it all himself, put it up on GitHub. That's something he can put on that college app that's going to help him in his future prospects. I have another player who's coming in who wants to go into journalism. We don't have a journalism program here at DC, but we have the shoutcasting. So that individual is going to step into the streaming role, and that's how they're going to build out their journalism resumes. Additionally, it takes loads off of your plate. So look for those students. I personally am still looking for social media people. I can't run Twitter to save my life. I keep trying. It keeps failing. I really wish I could find one, but these are the places we can put those students in, and you can take that director role, monitor what they're doing, but still that turns over some aspects to them. It's healthier for you, it's healthy for them, and gets them that experience we really should have our students building. And last one, trust your process. Now that you have everything written down, now that you have core ideas, let them ride for at least a season. Stick with them and trust your own process. Reach out for support. The Playverse Discord, the MHSEL Discord, over the course of the years has grown so huge, and every single person in there is like the nicest human beings on the face of the planet. The Novi coach is in there, and my first years in Smash, the Novi team used to beat us all the time. And I'm like, oh, Novi. And then I met him, and like, he's the nicest dude on the face of the planet. I could not be mad losing to him or even his team. His kids on his team were the nicest humans on the planet. Go out and capture those resources. Everybody here is a smiling face. Everybody wants to help out. Jump into those Discords and get that help. I think that's all I have for the top 10 things I wish I had known. Did we have any big questions come through?
We've been answering them as we go, I think, for the most part. But again, Eric's got a couple more slides, and then I just have a couple of reminders to throw in there. But we will still be answering questions, and we can hang out longer for those who do have time that want questions asked. We can do that as well. So one question.
Oh, Robert, I got a great answer for that after this. So we'll do a speed round because I got 4 minutes left. I didn't quite hit my goal. Number one, as a first-year coach, you are a director. You are making sure the entire play goes off without a hitch. Really rely on those student coaches to do the play-by-plays for you. And how does the game work? How does your match selection go? Really step into that director role and just make sure people are where they belong. Some big responsibilities you have as a coach. Figure out your tryout method. I'm speaking about this one from experience. I thought I was a genius, and when I will just take the 3 best players on my team, that's my varsity. I didn't take into account any of the mental, any of the personalities. So come up with a method for yourself. How important is skill versus how important is team dynamics for you? I would definitely lean into, off of my own experience, that team dynamic side. Make sure those players, 3 players if you're Rocket League, 4 if you're Splatoon, 5 if you're Overwatch, make sure those players gel really well. If you have the choice between 2 tank players in Overwatch, which one gels better with that particular team? Also, scheduling. Playverse offers a really nice Monday queue system, which is in effect today, but they also allow you to set up scrims. So you can post up in that space and ask for matches or look through everybody else who's offered matches. They do an okay job right now with the skill levels where people are assessing their own skill. They're pretty accurate. People are pretty honest on where they feel they are in, oh wow, failing English again, where they feel they are in skill level. And lastly, I'm going to hit it again. Set those expectations of team performance and behavior early. How are they supposed to behave in chat? What is it okay to say in chat and what is it not? Ask your players, okay, well, you won the game. What are you saying in chat? You lost the game. What are you saying in chat? Because the slang they're used to using at home when they're playing solo is probably not the slang you want them using in the chat. So keep that in mind. And that's going to take us right into management. You would be amazed how much just you being in the room changes your players' dynamics. I had issues with one of my teams last year. They kind of stumbled. They fell apart because I was like, oh, you guys are doing awesome. Here, you go over in this area and you play your game. I'm going to get this new Splatoon team up and running. And by just stepping out of that room, the dynamics between themselves and the communication they were giving other teams completely changed. I had to pull them back in just so I could be present. And they went right back to being the Angels I knew they could be. But it just takes that coach being there. And that goes into the team cohesion. If you have a chance, I'll also have Ryan ship out my tilt presentation. It's a really big thing in esports, getting that mental taken care of. For anybody with any psychology background, really it's cognitive behavioral techniques over and over and over again. Get those breathing techniques down. The more I dug into it, the more I realized, oh, this is just sports psychology for esports. Lastly for this slide, as I hit the 50-minute mark, communication is the key. Tell your players what they expect. Try to find out from your players what they expect of you. Start talking to those coaches early. Usually on Mondays is when I jump into Playverse, see who my matches are, and I start communicating with coaches then and there. The faster that you know the other team is ready, the faster that you know your players are going to be present for your week, the easier it is to get rematches or reschedule matches if that needs to happen. And next slide. Awesome. Practices, can't say this enough. It's the same as any other sport. Your teams will be as successful as the work they want to put in. So do the footage review with them. Set up scrims, whether they're in-house or in the Playverse matchmaking. As the coach, get your student coaches to figure out what are good drills for this particular game, and definitely work on that teamwork and communication. For me, game day, I force my players to be in the room, set up, ready to go at least 15 minutes before. I like to push for 30 minutes before. So at 3:30 for any of my game days, everything should already be set up, and my students should already be warming up, getting those hands nice and loose. And then lastly, social media. I'm great at streaming. It's what I was doing for my Do Good this year. Not so hot at Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook. Whatever social media your school uses the most, get your players there. Find a student player that can run that for you. Make sure you're getting your program out there to your community, to your parents. I think that's it. I only ran over 2 minutes this time.
I'm going to make a comment just on the social media piece. As a reminder, you have other students in your school that are really interested in, building up those resumes. Even if they aren't on your esports team and you know that they're really interested in that, reach out to them because they might want that experience helping you expand on social media and tell your story. We really are trying to break that stigma. The only way that we're going to be able to get that pay, be able to get, some of MHSAA more, on board and everything is if we break this stigma. And I'm turning it over to Ryan.
Yeah, we're just going to fly through a couple slides. And again, I'm going to skip over some of them that are just resources because you'll get the slide deck. So Eric touched on this a little bit during match day. So really what we want to try and avoid are forfeits. All right. Because your kids get psyched up to play. They go to play. Then, oh, the team we were just playing just forfeited. Right. It'd be no different than your football or volleyball team, right? Getting all psyched to play. And that happens typically for two reasons. One, the technology isn't working, and that's why we say take advantage of the preseason and work through all those bugs, be nice, be best friends to your IT folks. And then the other one is players not showing up. And Eric already touched on setting expectations for that. So really take advantage of being able to scrimmage, test those features out. They do a good job of lining people up that have gotten all their games in to get similar matches and competitive levels, which is kind of the cool part. Some other hot topics people ask us about gear all the time. We do have a partnership with Esports Gear that can help allow you to work with an artist to design a jersey, arm sleeves, hoodies, hats, beanies, whatever. And what's really cool is they'll actually create an online store for you to use. And then they have like a base level price they set. You can mark that up and then you can sell it to family and friends. And then the money that gets revenue generated can go back to your program. They'll just cut you a check and you can use that to buy adapters and controllers and all sorts of good stuff. So it does take a few weeks to go through the process because they send you a sample and they design it from scratch. And so you want to get started on that early. Otherwise, we have some links in there about budgeting and fundraising. We do have a sample letter that I will send out as well with this that we've had some people say they have good success with just taking this letter and mailing it or dropping it off in person at the local car dealership or the manufacturing place in town or the mom and pop business. And the cool thing with the jerseys, just like you see in professional soccer and NBA now is, hey, we'll put a Smith Auto Group on the corner of our esports jersey if they want to donate and help buy us jerseys. Like that's kind of the cool part of that process. Next slide, Maggie. We've mentioned this. You can really do anything from low dollars all the way up to like refurbishing rooms and putting in brand new spaces. But we mentioned it. Kids can bring in consoles from home. You can buy used ones from GameStop or on Facebook Marketplace. If you are able to not let them get rid of the media centers and the computer labs, a lot of those machines can work. They might just need a quick little graphics card update. We know of schools that might use ESSER funds to buy credit recovery powerful laptops, and they just make sure they bump up the specs on it a little bit because then they can use it after school for esports, things like that. Some schools have kids pay to play sports, right? They charge a $50 fee or a $10 fee, whatever it is. So there are different little things you can do to help support budgets. Already talked about fundraising. Go ahead and go to the next one, Maggie. You can kind of fly through these, Maggie. That's okay. So I sent an email out actually today talking about some of these upcoming events. So as we get word of events we're holding or events in your area we know about, we will reach out to you because kids do have fun playing in additional tournaments, especially ones that are in person. They have a lot of fun with those, being able to see the kids that they know from online, and now they get to see them in person and battle it out. And it's really cool for parents to see them, right? They usually see them by themselves in their room. It's fun to watch them interact with their teammates against other kids that are there. Because normally during your regular matches in your, the room you're in your school building, parents don't get to see that.
Gonna do a shout out to Eric. He's hosting one in March on that. So please make sure to check that out. One of the other pieces that I'd like to say to add to Ryan, and I won't take much time, but we've had parents that will come up to us at in-person events and be like, I didn't know he was this good or she is this good, because they haven't witnessed it, and being able to witness it in person is a completely different experience for them.
Can you skip, go ahead and just go through all the pictures of different events that we've had? Keep going.
Oh yeah, that was
That was fun. That was a really cool. We had Detroit Catholic Central hosted a pep assembly with esports and ended up getting over 1 million views on TikTok. It was crazy. This one right here. So I know Eric mentioned the Discord. There's a link in here that takes you to a how-to document. I have dedicated time every day that I work on esports. So if you email me or text me, I will answer. But like Eric mentioned, we have such a really good community of coaches in this league. A really easy question that can get answered by somebody who's in the trenches doing this, right? Because I am not a coach. It's a great way. And I had to learn it from scratch. And it's honestly, it is more efficient than email. It truly is. It's really quick. They answer it in a couple seconds usually. Feedback response time is fast. So please use that link and join and set up your free account, and you'll be able to get connected with other coaches. It is great.
And
the last couple slides, go ahead.
Tim, I see that you have a question on if kids can be on multiple teams or on a backup team. And my answer is yes, I'll leave it to Eric, but I'm 99% sure that they can be on as many teams as they want, as long as it doesn't interfere with scheduling and everything like that on what they can commit to.
So if I can jump in on that, for my teams, if they're approaching it from more of a JV exploratory side, like I want to be on esports, but I don't know what title I'm comfortable with yet, I let them proceed. But if they start becoming very serious and competitive in a Rocket League title or a Overwatch title, eventually it comes to the point where they're skipping practice for another team to practice for this team. And that starts to impact the other team's practices and their team cohesion. So for my players, if they're in that JV exploratory aspect, I let them play on as many teams as they want, figure out what it is they want to play. But as soon as they're ready to make that hard commitment, like, oh, I am a Smash player, then I do limit them, just because it impacts the other team's practices and team cohesion.
Well, and to add on to that is they can build their skills to the point where they might get scholarships. We have multiple college reps that come to all of our in-person events. I don't think we've had one in-person event without a college rep there, watching kids playing and everything, scouting. They get scholarships, and we've got multiple kids that are going. I believe Eric has a couple that are already headed to MSU.
And it's big schools. MSU is coming to my building to do a signing with 2 of my students that they gave significant scholarship dollars to. So really finding a title that the player is strong in and comfortable with. If esports is something they want to pursue competitively, there's scholarship opportunities out there for them.
Do you want to skip ahead just to those resources? Keep going, Maggie.
Yeah.
Yep. So the next few resources at the end, you might have seen them if you've done our Esports 101 webinar before, but these come from Playversus. Just all of these are links to different help documents that walk you through the schedule process, how to set up your team, how how to submit a ticket. And then if you keep going, there's links to each handbook for each game that'll give you the rules on how all that works and how many rounds there are and best of and what the different
Game day
procedures are for moving
protocol.
from bench to your roster. And so otherwise we'll leave you with we'll hang out. If there's any other burning questions, we can hang out for a couple minutes. Or you want to pull our contact info up there one last time. And again, we'll get you all this stuff. Thank you so much, Eric, for leading us through that. And Eric's great. Like you said, he helps and mentors other schools all the time, which is why we're going to try and clone them and get Eric's all over the state. But we'll hang out here for a few
as
more
long
minutes.
as I can have a copy as
Yeah, that's
well.
right. Yeah.
Then clone away. I just get
So
one.
we won't
That's
shut
it.
this down. If you got to hop off and get home and do other things, go ahead. Thanks for joining us. I'm so thankful you're joining us this spring. I'll be watching, see how everybody does over the preseason. Look out for more emails coming from Maggie and I over the next 2 weeks. And best of luck this season. Again, we'll hang out for a few more minutes if anybody has any questions.